Hello everybody and welcome back to the Aunt Angie channel. My name is Angie and I'm here to talk to you today about the football field. So let's get started. So the football field is 100 yards long from end to end. And then on each end of the actual playing field, you have two end zones. Each of those end zones are 10 yards apiece. And that's where your goal is to get the ball to when you are making a touchdown, is into the end zone. The field is marked with a full line across it every 5 yards. Between those 5-yard lines, you will see hash marks that are 1 yard. So when you get down to these plays, the ball can move forward, half of a yard or a yard. And so you have to be able to mark that somehow and be able to keep track of how far they're going. And they also don't move the ball, say, from the 10 to the 20-yard line. They might go from the 13 to the 23rd. So you have to be able to count those 1 yard marks. You will also see a goalpost at the end of each end zone. So you'll have your 100-yard field, you'll have your 10-yard end zone, and then on the back side of that, you will have your goalpost. Okay, hash marks run the length of the field on each side of the field. When a ball is carried or thrown and the person runs out of bounds, they place that hash mark, or they place that ball there at the hash mark. If the ball carrier is tackled between the hash marks, the ball is spotted and placed where it was determined to be dead. Whenever a ball is run out of bounds, the referee will take the ball and he will place it on the hash mark that is closest to where they went out of bounds. This does one of two things. If they didn't do that and they placed it at the center of the field the entire time, the center of the field would become very worn down very fast, especially when we're talking about turf. Also, if they place the ball wherever the person was tackled, then if they were tackled close to one of the sidelines, the next play, the quarterback would only be able to play to one side or the other because they were so close to the sideline. It would only give them half the field of opportunity. So they move it towards a hash mark in the center of the field, not wanting to, again, use the center of the field constantly. So they bounce back and forth, but it also gives the offense actually some room to make a play. So let's talk about out of bounds. So you're going to notice some differences between the NFL and your high school or college players. So in the NFL, a player has to have both feet inside of the playing field when they catch a ball. So you'll oftentimes see players who are up on their tiptoes, almost like a ballerina, hoping that when the ball hits their hands, that their toes will be inside of the playing field. So you'll see them stretched out very far, extending both their legs and their feet to make sure that their feet are inside of the playing field. In college, you only have to have 1 foot. In college and in high school, you only have to have 1 foot inside of the playing field in order to be eligible to receive that ball and to have it be called inbounds. These are also the plays that you're going to see challenged very frequently. This is when there's going to be questions about were they or were they not actually inbounds. And this is legitimate. If you have ever watched a football game, it is really hard to tell. And the referees are on the field and they're trained, but it can be very difficult to make the right call depending upon what angle you're at. So this is where you're going to see coaches from the opposite team or from their team challenging whether or not the player was inbounds or out of bounds when they made that catch. All right, let's talk about grass versus turf. Now, this is a big deal. So a lot of schools are starting to move from grass towards turf. And back in the day, all football fields were made out of grass. However, grass is difficult to maintain and could provide for less than satisfactory fields. So if you live somewhere where it rains a lot, the fields can get very muddy, and then you go out and play a game and you tear up the field and it just makes a mess, to the point where you can have actual divots or like wallows in the field in certain places where they've maybe spent a lot of time running the ball back and forth and they've just torn up the ground. So that can be really difficult. Plus you have to have somebody that fertilizes it, that waters it, that mows it. It's got to be at the proper length for a game. All of those things can come into play. So many NFL stadiums and many high school stadiums and college stadiums are moving to artificial turf. Most Pee Wee games that you see are going to be played on grass. And the reason for that is obvious, because you don't have, I mean, how can you supply the number of fields? When I go to Pee Wee games around my house for my nephews, there's multiple games going on. So they'll usually go to makeup fields like on the backside of an elementary. However, we had an issue here because I live in the desert, and they stopped watering the grass on the elementary school, not thinking about the fact that the football players were going to be playing on there every Saturday, and the ground soon became very close to concrete, and we were starting to have a lot of injuries. So that's one thing to take into consideration if you are ever part of the people making decisions, is that you might want to talk to your local school board and see if they will continue to water the grass in those areas so that those players are not landing on such hard ground. Okay. So artificial turf is different depending upon what company they've gone with. But for the most part, you end up with a plastic piece of a blade of grass, or it looks like a blade of grass. And then underneath that, you're going to get some type of rubber substance or pellet or something like that. Not necessarily always made out of rubber. Or not necessarily that the grass is always made out of plastic. However, these materials obviously fake. And again, it depends on the company that you go with. The problem is that for one, it gets really hot on the field. And it also gets into everything. Okay, so the boys come home here to my house, and they have these pieces of rubber everywhere. They're in their shoes, they're in their pants, they're in everywhere. And so I feel like we should start a collection of them and then take them back to the field and put them back in, because it is easy to get that turf picked up and into the clothes. So the trade-off to having the rubber pieces all over your house, or at least all over the laundry room, is grass stains. So grass stains are always a source of angst between moms who are trying to keep uniforms clean and trying to make their kids look like they have a decent mom, right? And so I know that with my mom and with my sister-in-law and all the women that I know, they're always trying to figure out how to clean these uniforms. The best advice that I can give you that one of my friends uses is Coke. She soaks the kids' pants in Coke and then takes them out and washes them. And she said they always come out very clean. So there you go. All right, so let's talk about the football. So the football is called the pigskin. However, it's not actually made out of pigskin. It's actually made out of cow skin. You can buy smaller footballs for little kids. So as they get older in Pee Wees, the ball sizes will adjust to how big they are. So if you're buying a football for a kid, you need to make sure that you're getting one that's appropriate for their size. When they get into high school, they start using a ball that is the same size as the NFL. So high school, college, and the NFL all use the same size ball. The NFL has to use a Wilson ball. That has to be the brand of it. It has to be approved by the commissioner of football. And there's very specific specifications about how long it can be, how big around it can be. All of those kinds of things are very specific. And it also, if you remember, there's an issue with the inflation of it. So a few years ago, there was a big to-do because they were saying that the footballs in a particular game were not inflated properly. And they were basically accusing people on the team of cheating because they said that, I don't remember if they said they overinflated or underinflated, but there are rules about how they are inflated. Now, the difference that you might see in the high school versus or high school and college versus the NFL and the ball is that sometimes you will get a white ring around the end of the ball, and that is basically to just help them to see better at night. They can see the ball better when it's coming through the air because the boys are playing night games a lot of times. You know, high school football games start late. The sun might be going down depending upon where you live, and so that is there to help them to see it better. Hey ladies, thanks for joining me today. If you liked what you hear, please hit the subscribe button. I'll have more videos coming out talking about different sports, different things that you can do to understand what's going on to help you to be a better cheerleader for your kids. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comment box. And also please send this to your friends, your girlfriends, your sisters, your mom, the lady down on the bleachers that has no idea what is going on. Send these videos to them so that they can also subscribe and that they can learn how to be better cheerleaders. Thanks. Bye.